Welcome to Beyond Referrals, the podcast exploring how trust, growth, and client relationships in financial services are evolving in the digital and AI age. I'm your host, Emily Armstrong. Let's dive in. Welcome back to Beyond Referrals. I'm always so glad you're here. Today was such a great conversation with my friend Jason Colenda. He is the CEO of K Street Financial, a successful ensemble in the Northwestern Mutual system. They are constantly growing. They just crossed 24 team members and 1 billion of AUM. And we talked a lot about structure of building a large, successful, thriving ensemble. Culture is such a huge part of that. K Street is often referred to as the happiest team in their network office. And you can really feel that when you interact with the team. So we talked about how important culture is to the success of the business, the operational structure that every ensemble needs, and how to keep evolving that operational structure, the processes as the team grows, because the things that worked for a team of 5 will not work for a team of 12 and 25 and so on. And some of these teams are just growing so exponentially. It's quite mind-blowing. So if you're in a team like that, where you feel like it's really just growing faster than you can keep up with, I think this will be a really valuable episode for you to hear. My personal favorite takeaway of this episode, however, was all about succession planning. Jason talked about succession planning in a way that I have honestly never heard before, and it really did click for me. Succession planning is all about the clients. It's not always about the bottom line of the firm or the team or really any of that, but it's about the clients. And if you put them first at the center of what a succession plan is, everything else will make sense. And I just love how we talked about this. I don't know how else to say it other than I'll never see succession planning the same again after listening to this episode. I love also what we talked about being in the relationship business. It's never too early to start thinking about your succession plan because this is a delicate relationship business and the transfer of trust takes time. So if you are in an ensemble that's growing, if you are supporting growing ensembles at the office level, this one is incredible. So I think you're going to find that you're more ready to build a future ready firm after listening to this episode. So thanks for listening with Jason Colenda. He's a great one to take notes from. Can't wait for you to get into this conversation with me and Jason. Hey there, everybody, and welcome back to Beyond Referrals. I am thrilled for my guest today, Jason Colenda. He is a DC area native and born and raised in Fairfax, Virginia. Today, he is the CEO and partner of K Street Financial, a growing ensemble in the Northwestern ecosystem, DC area that just hit 1 billion AUM. Jason is a DC native and attended Villanova University where he majored in finance and he walked on to the varsity basketball team. And he was part of the team that made it to the Final Four in 2009. Ooh, I'd love to get into that. That's very cool. He began his career in private equity research before joining Northwestern Mutual in 2013. He's a CFP and a wealth management certified professional. And today he leads one of the strongest cultures and ensembles in the network. He just spoke on this topic at the most recent annual meeting just a few weeks ago. And today I have him here with us to talk all things about team building, ensembling, scaling, and enterprise, succession planning, and more. So if you are a partner of an ensemble or you're thinking about ensembling or in a leadership role at an ensemble, this conversation is going to be very relevant for you and likely a note-taking episode. Outside of work with K Street, Jason previously owned and operated a strength sports gym, and it's where he met his wife, Caitlin. And today they reside in Old Town Alexandria with their Bernedoodle, Barkley. So Jason is also an avid sports fan of local DC teams. He enjoys golf and traveling around the world in his free time. Jason, welcome to Beyond Referrals.
Hey, Emily. Thanks so much for having me today. Really looking forward to the opportunity.
I am too. So we knew each other a bit from ClientWise, but when I had McCall Fenn on my podcast, I always ask my guests, who is someone else I should have on the show? And McCall said that I should have you on the show. And she said, because I love what they're building and I love how they treat people.
Well, we love McCall. Her and her team have done phenomenal work for K Street over the years, and very kind words. So hope to be able to live up to it.
Yeah, absolutely. So would you tell us a little bit about your story? I know some tidbits were captured in that intro, but I always like to start there with my guests. Just tell me about your story and how you ended up at K Street. And please tell me more about being a member of the Final Four team at Villanova as well. That's amazing.
Yeah. As growing up in the DC area, I was definitely an avid athlete growing up. I began specializing in basketball kind of in high school. So I played at Bishop O'Connell in the Catholic League here. And I walked on at Villanova after kind of turning down some variety of kind of like mid-major Division I scholarship offers. My goal was to play high major basketball. And so got up on campus at Villanova and was fortunate to be able to make the team. We had some phenomenal teams, and I was blessed to play with some great teammates and some under some great coaches. And yeah, in 2009, we had a magical run, went to the Final Four, fell a little short. Folks always ask, oh, were you part of the national championship teams? Unfortunately, I was not. I was a whole generation before those guys, but like to think that we helped pave the way a bit. Those were some great experiences. And I think sports really taught me a lot as a professional and frankly, as an entrepreneur. I came out of college and while working full time in finance, I opened a gym with friends, and that was something that kind of just like, built on itself over time. So I've always had kind of an entrepreneurial spirit. A few years into my career I was really looking, while I loved the work that I was doing, it was super interesting. It just kind of lacked the connection to the end user. It just wasn't really clear who I was helping, how I was making like a positive impact for my clients. And so I was really looking for a career where that impact could be made. And wealth management was always something I really wanted to do. Growing up as an athlete and somebody who, really loved sports, I was unfortunately, tons of horror stories about people that I looked up to and idolized who maybe didn't get the best advice and whose money, ran out shortly after their retirement. And so I always thought like, hey, I'd love to be part of like a positive difference for people. And, I think this is a way that I could certainly kind of bridge some passions of mine, helping others, finance. And so when I was introduced to Northwestern Mutual, I really kind of fell in love with the culture and what the company was all about. And so I started in a staff role working for a managing director here in our McLean, Virginia office. And I did a little bit of everything: AFR, advisor support. I ran our set team. I even paid commissions. It really was a jack of all trades. And I thought that was like a great introduction to the NM system. I knew that I really wanted to be in the field. And so after a few years, it's kind of at a professional crossroads. Tony Stanley, my boss at the time, accepted the managing partner appointment in Philadelphia. I had a business in DC that was tying me to the area. So I was really starting to look for what was next. That's when I connected with my business partner, Kurt Ruprecht. Kurt was also at an inflection point in his business. He had built an incredibly successful early practice, form, all the accolades, was really building a great business. He was about 10 years into his career when we were introduced to one another by a colleague here in our network office, and we hit it off. He offered me a job within about 20 minutes of sitting down for that very first interview, and the rest is history.
That's awesome. So for anyone listening who's not familiar with K Street, will you tell us a little bit about what the team looks like today?
Yeah, absolutely. So Kurt and I were a team of two, back in really about 11 years ago when we began partnering, and have grown to now a team. We have one other equity partner, Brendan Trax. We've got 17 employees across client experience, investment operations, insurance operations, as well as like a really talented group of like next generation advisors. We have one ensemble affiliate, Dan Nguyen, who joined K Street actually earlier on this year. And we have 4 succession affiliate partners who have kind of joined the organization over the last 6 or 7 years. So a team of 25 in total. We have a little over $1.1 billion of assets under management. On the insurance side, we're writing anywhere between, 850,000 to $1 million of premium kind of every year as an organization.
Between you and Kurt, who is more of the visionary?
Yeah, I think so. This concept of visionary integrator is actually something that like really resonates with Kurt and I. I kind of think it does a really good job of describing our partnership. Kurt is more of like that visionary. I think he's got a ton of great ideas and is from an early age. I mean, this was his only job out of college. So, has really known what he was hoping to build as part of this business. I think what he lacked was some of the execution, operational infrastructure, like some of the things he really needed to help scale the business. And so that's where I kind of step in as the integrator and help, really help build some of that infrastructure out that's allowed us to kind of scale rapidly like we have over the last 10 years.
Yeah, that's amazing. Whenever I come across teams like K Street, and there's not a lot, right? There's only, in my opinion, a small handful where it's like, a healthy foundation and able to grow like that. I think like I was a part of an ensemble, so I really understand how challenging that is in a way of where like you have, advisors who are kind of transitioning to be more owners of an entity and you have to create departments, you have to create roles and responsibilities. And you and I have talked about this, but I always just find it really exciting and impressive seeing teams do that really well, like K Street. And so going back to kind of what McCall said about K Street, that was her biggest compliment off the bat was about your culture. And I know you have such an incredible reputation in the ecosystem. So can you talk to me about what is underneath all of that? What's the intention behind the culture, and how do the team members and the clients experience the culture of K Street, and why is culture an important part of building an organization?
Yeah, no, culture's huge. So our managing partner, Leo Tucker, he often shares with me that, he says, hey, K Street's the happiest team that within the network office. And frankly, I don't think there's like a bigger compliment to share that like folks from the outside can kind of see the culture that we've aspired to build. And frankly, I think culture is a secret sauce to success. I think we've been really intentional from the beginning to set core values, principles, and establish really what we want that culture to be. Like, we're a place where we definitely work hard, but I think we have a lot of fun along the way. We genuinely care about each other. We want the absolute best for all of the members of the firm. We want the absolute best for our clients. We put them first and foremost. And I think we really ensure that the team spends time together, both in the office and outside of it, to reinforce the positive relationships. I think that it's really, I think this actually goes back to some of those lessons I learned as a student athlete. And one of the things that I think Coach Wright at Villanova did such an amazing job of was building a culture based on like some values and some principles that everybody could hold each other accountable to. One of those at K Street Financial, which I did steal from Villanova, is this concept of being humble and hungry, right? An organization where we, are humble about any successes, continue to be hungry and fighting for more and what's next. And I think that's really, a core value that's helped describe who we are as an organization to folks coming in, but also has allowed us to continue to be success. So I think, there's no shortage of investment that we make into culture, whether that's we do quarterly offsite retreats. We have I do a big staycation celebration when the firm hits our annual goals every year. When we were a much smaller team and a little bit more nimble than we are today, I mean, we did trips to places like Scottsdale, Denver, Charleston, where we could all go out and really celebrate the successes of the year. And so, again, I think, we try to reinforce it every day, Every team meeting that we have has a shout out section where colleagues are able to highlight another member of the firm who's exhibited a core value of the organization over the last week. I just think it's the little things that really go a long way with culture. And I believe, our team feels it. Folks who are being recruited into the organization understand what they're getting themselves into, can self-select out if that's not necessarily in alignment with the type of organization they want to be. And so I think that's been a huge part of our success.
Yeah. Every time I speak with someone who's building a team, the topic of culture always comes up, and it makes so much sense to me. I listened to a podcast or an audiobook a couple days ago, and they were talking about how some research was conducted, like Google conducted this really extensive study on retention, employee retention. And basically, I'm going to really spark notes this finding, basically found that the biggest driver of retention really does come back to culture, and it's like the employees feeling seen. And so anytime I talk with a leader like you building, a team out, like this inevitably becomes the number one thing, because and really investing in people, because that's the business, and I love that reputation of being the happiest culture. To me, what it sounds like is you have certain intentions, right? Like values that you've established across the organization, but then it's also just in the vibe and the energy of the organization and how people act and how people treat each other and the shout outs. So that's awesome. How have you been able to keep that culture intact and in integrity while growing your firm pretty quickly and scaling and growing at such a fast and not exponential, but like aggressive rate where you guys are adding new team members and growing the firm, growing clients?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I mean, admittedly, that's definitely something that we're talking about regularly. We're struggling with every day. We don't have it all figured out. And I think that's a part of all good leaders is recognizing maybe that there continues to be opportunity for you to get better and improve and be open to ideas. And I think that helps it to, Emma, to your point, employees feeling seen. And so, but I think the recruiting process is really key. Yeah, maintaining culture starts with the recruiting process. So just being really upfront and honest with people about who we are and who we're not, and the culture we have and that we're aspiring to, and the type of firm we're trying to build. Culture attracts like-minded people, right? That is an attractive thing for people who are excited about it. And it's probably an unattractive thing for folks that aren't. And that's okay. It doesn't make them bad folks. It just might mean they might not be the best fit for our organization. And one of the things that we do and that I've gotten a lot of really positive feedback on as it relates to rapid growth and maintaining culture is during, our new team members' first 3 weeks of formal training, we have them go out to lunch on a scheduled basis with every single member of the firm. So we get
That's amazing.
We get little small groups together. I don't want to create one-on-one environments to make anybody feel uncomfortable, but we send and everybody who joins our firm has an opportunity within their first couple of weeks, whether it's the most senior partner at the firm or, the person who just started with them on that same first day. It's just really intentional way for us to speed up the relationship process, really show new people who we are and what we're about, the kind of collaborative, caring, collegial relationships that we want to aspire towards having. I think that sets the tone on day one and has been, something that I think has been helpful to folks getting integrated quickly.
I love that. That's such a great idea. So anyone listening who's running a growing ensemble, you need to steal that idea, because it's easy to just come in and kind of stay in your lane. And especially as the organization grows, you might really not get to know other team members. So I think that's really a great idea.
Yeah. I mean, we have, to your point earlier, departments that are working really closely together, but maybe not as closely with other departments in the firm. It's you could certainly have situations where you're 3-4 months into the organization, you've hardly chatted with somebody who's, sits on the other side of the keeps from you. And so we just try to battle that from day one, and make sure that we get everybody together. And again, that's just been we've gotten some positive remarks on that from a lot of the new folks joining the firm.
I love how simple that is too. It's like you don't need to like go, invest in this crazy program or this crazy thing. Just like have a little process where people go to lunch together and have it in your systems. And it's so simple, but I can see how that would make a really big impact across the organization.
Yeah, it's the small things. I think, culture is it can be, it's not all the big things, it's not all the fancy words on the wall. It's really the day-to-day actions. I think it's really what it's about. And I think just being intentional around it.
Yeah, that's great. So let's talk a little bit about the operations.
Sure.
And you had mentioned you've got departments. So I think one of the biggest challenges of building an ensemble is there's a lot of challenges. And I'd love to hear like from you, what are you feeling like we have this down? Like this is like something we've learned, we feel really confident in. And then this is something we're still trying to figure out when it comes to like the operations or the scaling of the ensemble.
Yeah, absolutely. Something I think we do well. So we were chatting earlier about the concept and the integrator and the visionary, and that comes from a book called Rocket Fuel. Gino Wickman's the author. He also wrote another book called The Entrepreneur Operating System, or better known as EOS. And about 5 years ago, we instituted EOS within the organization, and I think that has really given us like an infrastructure in which to scale. So you've got an executive leadership team that's slowing down, having regular conversations about things that are going on in the organization, discussing key business initiatives and projects. You've got departments able to run those same type of meetings on the things that are essential there. We have we keep a scoreboard, where we are regularly discussing, tracking, monitoring how we're doing. And I think it creates a lot of intradepartmental collaboration, right? Folks identifying, hey, like this issue spans not just insurance, not just investments, not just client experience. It's like, it's the whole system. Let's get together and work. It creates a lot of leadership opportunities for folks within the organization, which is like an absolute necessity as the organization scales. So I think EOS has been a really terrific framework. One thing that I think if we figured anything out, I think recognizing like that's a good framework for which the business to operate under, for sure. I think some of the things that we're still working on, like I said, we're by no means perfect. I thought we really had like a clear set of documented processes and procedures and how to do things, both big and small. But what you find as this business scales rapidly, like what worked really well for a team of 6 doesn't work really well for a team of 12, and it sure as heck doesn't work for a team of 25. And so that's an area we're constantly tinkering, constantly improving. Documentation, I think, is a really underrated element of how to scale effectively. And so I think, again, when everything was in like in one or two people's heads, like things just would move smoothly and it was all good.
You
But
didn't.
it wasn't even a thing. It just happened. But it's not like that anymore. And that's part of the learning. And I think that's part of the understanding, but there's always going to be operational headaches. There's always going to be the next milestone to improve or get better. EOS refers to those items as issues, and issues isn't an ugly word, right? It's that the issues are opportunities to get better. And as long as you look at it through that lens, and you're constructive and how you be solutions oriented around solving those things, and you're collaborative, I feel like you end up getting to the other side. Okay. But I'm sure there'll be more milestones on the horizon we'll run into, and we'll just work through them together.
You're really bringing me back to my days of being a part of a growing ensemble and who also ran on EOS. And like, if we didn't have that, like there would be no backbone of the business. So I think it's so great. I know a lot of other teams are running on that. It provides so much structure and support. So I think that's amazing that you guys are just so running with that, and it's provided so much value to the team. The other thing to mention is, yeah, that is so true. And I want you to say more about the documentation piece,
Yeah, absolutely.
because you said like documentation is underrated, and will you say more about that specifically?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So what I mean by that is like really having a clear step by step process of expectations on how things need to get done, right? And all of us at NM can attest to, there's like a million systems that you're working with to
Yeah.
get to the end destination, to get to the finish line. We don't always make it easy. And so when you bring someone into your organization, like they don't know anything, right? I mean, maybe they had some NM experience, which is great, and they know some of the systems, but they don't know how you operate. They don't know how you expect things to get done. So they're familiar with like tasks, for example. Like we might be familiar with how you use tasks in CRM, but you might not be familiar with how K Street utilizes tasks in CRM. Well, like, how am I supposed to get somebody operating the same way if there isn't like a guidebook, a handbook to be able to hand provide to them and say, hey, this is how we do things here, and let's get you up to speed. Like during training, we're going to teach you all this stuff, but now you have something that you can refer back to, because that's the other piece. You're trying to build self-sufficient individuals. You want folks who can think on their own. You want folks who can bring ideas. You want folks who can problem solve. And so you want to be able to provide them that framework with which to operate. And that's where that's where that documentation is so key. And like I shared, I thought, early on, I was like, man, we really got this stuff dialed in. But as the business grows and as roles evolve and folks are doing new or different things in your organization, you quickly realize, oh, there's more processes to document. Here's another job description or another, set of expectations that need to be documented, because like that role didn't exist in my business 9 months ago. But it does today. And now they need a guidebook to like how to do it most effectively. So the unfortunate truth is it's just like, it's evolving. It's never
Yeah.
going to end. That'll be, I think, a piece of the puzzle from now until, there is no K Street Financial, which frankly, our goal is to ensure that that doesn't happen. So I'm like, it's funny. So my wife has spent most of her career at like Fortune 500 companies. And when you start a new job at a Fortune 500 company, like if they weren't handing you a how-to guide, you'd be like, what the heck is going on? And yes, none of us are Fortune 500 companies here in the NM ensemble ecosystem, but like we need to be thinking and operating in that exact same way as those organizations do, because the reality is like they got there and they figured it out how to like operate at scale with lots of people across. Some of our businesses are cross geographic areas, and like how do you navigate all that? The document, how do you make sure in Wichita the exact same thing is happening in Manhattan? It's like, well, you need to have documented procedures on what you expect, and then you can then you have something to measure against and hold people accountable towards.
That's such a good just mindset to have, of that work will never end and you always have to be on top of it. And it's not like you're going to write the process and put a little bow on it and like then you're done, because the team evolves. You get better at the process, you refine the process. And so
change, what like the technology of yesterday in the technology of tomorrow. And that's something here at NM is like, evolving really rapidly. We're excited to see how things like AI, et cetera, can like play in, but like your systems and processes need to change as the tools around you evolve as well.
Yeah. And need to be documented, not just in someone's head or like you train someone here. That's such a big pain point of a growing ensemble. Thanks for diving into that. That's really, really valuable. So you spoke a few weeks ago at the annual meeting around succession planning, succession affiliate. I think something that K Street is doing really well from my perspective is really being intentional about that generational planning, on both sides, right? Like you've got succession affiliates. And for anyone who doesn't listening who might not know what that is, it's, a generation above, partnering with them around their book. And then you've got the generation below where you're starting to invest and build into next gen advisors. Talk to me about like, why is that so important right now? What's the strategy and the thinking behind that? And how are you going about that?
Yeah. Absolutely. So I think it comes down to first, Emily, like, what are you trying to build as an organization? What's your vision? And at K Street, our number one goal is to be an enduring firm, right? So a firm that thrives long past curtain eyes active involvement in the organization. And in order to do that, we need to ultimately have a succession plan in place for like the firm that we're building, right? So, and you can't start too early, can't start too soon thinking about what that looks like, because like what we do and the relationships that we have with our clients and the trust that they put in us and the responsibility that we have to uphold them and all the promises we're making each and every day. That's not a small, we don't take that lightly.
Yeah.
And it's really important that there is a thoughtful transition process for the business. And so, building up a bench of talented people who are going to be ready to take the firm to the next level in the future is something you can't start too soon.
Yeah.
And speaking to some of the work that we've done with our succession affiliate partners, that there is a budding epidemic in our industry that is coming, and that's the advisor shortfall, right?
Yeah.
We're going to have advisors retiring at 3 or 4 times the rate as we have new advisors entering the industry. And so we have had no greater honor than to have some of our partners place their trust in us, place their clients' trust in us to uphold the promises that they've made to those clients for their last 20, 30, 40 years in professional practice. And that's been such a healthy thing for the organization. It's allowing us to create a greater diversity in our client base across generation. It's opening up opportunities for us to do multi-generational planning. We have advisors who can assist with the, grandparents and the parents and then the grandbabies. And as they're coming into their young adult lives and careers, ultimately the inheritors of the wealth that we're managing and the plans that we're building for clients. And so I think, really thinking bigger picture, really what are you building? And then, if you want to build that enduring firm, like succession is just it's table stakes to play the game.
Succession is how you build the enduring firm. I think what you just said is one of the best pictures I've seen on this topic and I love what you said about it's not too early to start thinking about succession, and you want to do it earlier than you think. It's not like you should start thinking about this because you say, oh, I want to retire next year or I want to exit next year. That's way too late, because you make such a good point. This industry moves very slow because it's built on trusted relationships. And it's not like any other company or industry where you can just do a deal and, somehow exit the business or transition the business. It's a relationship business. So everything has to happen earlier and it takes more time. You need to work. It's just like a delicate process to what you're describing of transitioning that trust. And I think that's such a great way to put it, where it really is about the clients and how, like, really what they're trusting you with. I think that's such a good reminder of what you're stewarding for them and what K Street could be and is to those clients, where you are building that infrastructure to be able to handle like the next generation that the previous generation has worked so hard to build, and continuing delivering value throughout the generations. And I think that's a really amazing way to look at it. It's not just, because I think succession planning is kind of a buzzword right now, where a lot of people are talking about it and a lot of people are maybe, talking about it, focusing on it. But I think how you just described it for me was a light bulb of that, the why behind you're doing it.
Yeah. And I think, I'll speak, briefly to that as well, Emily, if you don't mind. Like,
Please. Yeah.
I think doing it for the right reasons,
Yes.
is what's going to drive the businesses that are going to have the most success in this industry in the years ahead. I think, everybody knows about the flood of money from places like private equity, the movement of advisors. And, at the end of the day, like, I'm a capitalist, and we are in a for-profit business, but it's more than just like the check. It's more than just making money or creating exit value for yourself as an entrepreneur. It goes back to the really like the noble profession that we're in, and this trust that these clients put in us, and the important role that we play in their families' ongoing and future success. And I think if you do it for the right reasons, the other stuff takes care of itself.
So
And
true.
I think if you don't, then you can maybe walk into situations where it's not done quite the right way. And frankly, you don't have the financial outcomes you're looking for.
Yeah. What from your perspective, I love talking about what's going on in the industry kind of at a high level where you made this point. The professionals in the industry, that's about to change a lot over the next 10, 15 years. 3 to 4 times more professionals retiring than entering the field. The job market is also so different than it used to be. And you have the wealth transfer happening where everyone knows about the great wealth transfer. And I think that ties into succession planning and the need for firms like K Street to really do that for the right reasons. What are the opportunities and threats that you see from your perspective for other ensemble, like other advisors or ensemble owners in this moment right now?
I think the biggest threat is like kind of burying your head in the sand and pretending that it's not happening, that like this great wealth transition isn't occurring, that the demographics of our industry aren't rapidly evolving around us, that AI isn't going to play a part in how like this industry transforms in the years ahead. I think the biggest threat is just remaining comfortable and just continuing to do what you're doing because it's worked up to this point. And I think that also dovetails into like what the biggest opportunity is. It's to embrace, it's to embrace the change, the evolution of our industry, the transition from, lone wolf practices to the teaming that we're seeing today. I don't believe it's a fad. I believe it's here for a reason. And that's because our clients are way more sophisticated, have access to way better information, and are expecting an elevated experience. If they're paying for that,
Yeah.
right? That's what they're expecting. And so the firms of the future need to be prepared to deliver on that. And I think we have to be able to provide greater service for the same fee. And it's really tough to do that if you don't scale effectively. You can
Yeah.
deliver.
How do you do that? You go out of business.
Yeah, you eventually get to a point where you can't economically make it viable anymore. And I think that is a part of the reason why teaming has become a very popular and has become a great opportunity in our industry, is to come together, pool resources, build broader scale and infrastructure, support your clients. Again, at the end of the day, what are we here to do? Support our clients at a more elevated level. And I think you have the ability to do that with the scale and structure of a team organization. And so I think that's kind of where the opportunity that I see.
I couldn't agree more. And you're right. Like it's one or the other. I think it's such an interesting time in our industry right now because things are changing so quickly. I even came into this industry 7 years ago, and that's not that long ago, but it's been so different. And I say a lot, I love what you said about consumers they need and want different things from you. And you have to deliver elevated service. Like, what are you delivering for them in the age where today, we've got AI and it can give really good personal advice. Like, general advice is not even really what the value of the advisor is anymore. And that's becoming increasingly more and more sophisticated. And who knows what that's going to look like in a couple years from now. And so, yeah. And at the same time, people are craving the human and the professional. And I like what you said as well of the team perspective. Like, really, that's becoming a really strong opportunity for people to go into this career or people to amplify their practices, because it's like you can't just like really make it work by yourself anymore. I don't think that model really applies.
There's a ton of talented people out there, and I'm sure, there will be folks who'll continue to figure it out that way. But I think it was always a steep hill to climb. I think,
Yes, it is.
I think that hill has gotten steeper over the years.
I agree. Yeah. What are the opportunities you see in that, like uniquely right now at K Street?
Um, yeah, I think for us, when we continue to think about, expanding, expanding services, finding opportunities to add more value and at the end of the day, like deliver human relationships to our clients. I think that's the piece that will never be able to get replaced, is that human interaction, those human relationships, and so I think the client experience elements continue to become more and more important in this, increasing AI world. Like, we need to show people that we care, that we know them, that they're important to us. And it's more than just what's the return on their CCV and, what, can they retire at 62 versus 65? Like
Yeah.
those pieces are the commodity now, and everybody is can deliver financial plans or, model portfolios or things like that. But what they can't replicate is how someone at K Street Financial is going to make them feel. What they can't replicate is when they pick up that phone, you got a friendly voice that you recognize, that knows you, that asks about your kids and, how your vacation was over the summer, and is there to make sure that whatever it is that they need, like we're going to be on it in a hop, skip, and a jump. I think that stuff can't necessarily be replaced or replicated. And I think as we continue to focus on scaling and building our firm, it's continuing to invest in the client experience, and
Yeah.
that is going to be really key for the ongoing success of the organization.
I think that's such a perfect full circle moment, just with what we were talking about earlier of this business really is the relationship business. And this conversation is really making me realize that even more. And to really build that enduring firm, like it really does come down to the relationships, the client experience. I do see it shifting even more important to the human side, the relationship, the connection
Absolutely.
side. I'm already starting to feel that, and I think that will only accelerate. This is kind of silly, but I was watching The Devil Wears Prada 2 2 days ago. Love the movie, but it was my second time watching it. And have you seen the movie?
I haven't seen the second one, but I would be lying if I said I hadn't seen the first.
Well, you do need to see the second one. Go see it with Caitlin. It's so good. Like, it is so good. But basically, the plot is Miranda Priestley, she's still running Runway magazine, and there's the next gen inheritor. So the dad dies of the holding company of the magazine, and that his son is inheriting it, and he's like this tech bro. He doesn't understand a thing about fashion or anything about the industry. He brings in like these McKinney consultants, and it's all about digitization, cutting expenses. It's hilarious because they tell her like she can't fly first class and take private cars, and she has to fly coach and all this stuff. But beside the point, it did really make me think about, and this is like the point of the movie, is like at what expense are we all pursuing, like, and not everyone, but just like the world right now,
Sure.
those things like efficiency, profitability, AI technology, and that's eroding like the human art and the human soul and the human, like all the things that we really appreciate. So I do think there is a shift happening at a macro level where those things will stand out and be even more valuable and more impactful. So good on you all for really seeing that. And I think that's going to accelerate your growth of the firm more than anything, quite frankly.
Yeah, I think keeping the client first, keeping the focus there, and that's in everything that you do. You build a culture to serve the clients. All the
Yeah.
stuff that we talked about. You think about succession, the client's perspective. You
Yeah.
think about the service models that you're building to best serve your clients. I think if you keep your clients in the, forefront of the why for most of the business decisions, they're not all going to work. It's not all going to be perfect, but I think you're going to be moving the ball in the right direction.
I think that's the perfect way to end this conversation of keep the main thing the main thing. Keep your clients first in all your decisions, and you will end up in the right direction. I really wholeheartedly agree with that. And that this was an amazing conversation. Are you down to do some lightning round questions as we wrap up?
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to do it.
This is just like quick question, quick answer. Okay. What is some business advice that you do not subscribe to?
Man, that's a tough one. It's a lot. I don't think, I don't view it as a dog eat dog world, not in our industry. I think that there's plenty of opportunities out there. And so I view collaboration, partnership, working with others, playing nice in the sandbox is a better representation of your brand and who you are than it is like needing to, want to make sure that the guy down the street isn't calling your prospect or so I think that's one thing I just don't believe in.
I love that. That's really good. What is one tool that you cannot live without?
My Remarkable.
What's that?
It's like a digital notebook. I've had,
Oh,
I have a locker full of notebooks here in my office, and whenever you need anything, you don't know which notebook to open up to go to. So it's like kind of an electronic notebook that I keep mostly for, like internal business, growth and development type stuff. It's not compliance approved, so there aren't any client notes in it.
we won't say. Yeah. It's more like your notes for running the business. And
Exactly.
I think
Exactly.
I've seen those before. So you can like you're still writing notes with
Yeah.
a pen. So you
Yep.
get that benefit, but it's like searchable and
Yeah. And
savable.
I'm a tactile learner. So
Yeah.
it's like writing is like very helpful for
Same.
reinforcement for me.
Yeah.
So going like purely to like typing or like voiceover notes and stuff like that is just it's never worked as well for me personally in my learning style.
Same here. I'm a notebook girly all day long.
Yeah.
I'll have to look into that. What does life look like right now outside of building the enterprise of K Street? And who are your sports teams?
Well, my sports team. So, basketball, I'm a huge basketball fan. So really excited about the Wizards' #1 pick and kind of, I've been a partial season ticket holder for years. We haven't been very good. I'm hopeful that this year that changes. And then football, I'd say, is my second favorite sport. So my Washington football team here has not treated me very well over the last 30 years, but
They got
love,
close last year.
love Jaden Daniels and excited about what the program is doing. So it feels like it's a little bit of a renaissance here in DC sports wise. What's life like outside of building the firm? I've mentioned my amazing wife, Caitlin, so we just, we like to play golf, I think she's finally going to convince me to play some tennis with her this winter when it's in the longer golf season. And we like to travel, spend time with friends and see the world. So I'm blessed.
What's your next trip that you have planned?
We will be going to Key West in December for just a couple day getaway, getting some warm weather.
Amazing. Yeah, that'll be good timing when it's all cold in DC.
Yeah.
And then last question, who is someone else I should have on the show?
I'll share two folks that I think are incredible for different reasons. So, Matt Aaron is somebody here in our network office that I've been fortunate to work with my whole career at Northwestern Mutual. I've seen him as an intern. He's building like an amazing business, talented dude, bright, and I think would be great for this platform. And then my dear friend JP Maraca with Two Lights, he is their managing partner, a top 10 NM wealth company, and he's, working alongside Nolan and Lauren and Brian and their whole team and close friend of mine. So I think those are two great folks that you would enjoy a convo with.
I would love that. Matt, I followed him like years ago because he was kind of like the face of fee-based planning within Northwestern Mutual. And I like did a bunch of his courses and stuff. And I've just watched him since. And I see what he's building too. And I think he's such a good example of someone really crushing it in like the next generation. So yeah. And then I'm not familiar with JP, but yeah, I would love speaking with them. I love getting to have these conversations, and it's cool because it adds value to others who listen to it. And selfishly, I learn a ton from people. So thank you for those recommendations. We can connect about it. Yeah. And then Jason, so everyone listening, make sure you go check out K Street, check out what they're doing, what they're building, connect with Jason on LinkedIn. And is there any where else we should send people or anything else that we did not get to cover today?
No, I mean, listen, I've had a lot of folks share advice with me and help me on my journey. I think the most important thing that we can do is pay it forward. So if there's anybody who's listening, who's got questions or is interested in hearing more about, some of the things that we discussed today or our approach on things, don't hesitate to reach out. I'm always happy to, carve out some time to chat. So yeah, like I said, I'm an open book. I'm here to help.
That's so generous. Well, it's so fun to watch what you're building, and I am excited to see what you continue to do at the team. And so thank you so much for your time today, Jason. This was a great conversation.
Thanks so much, Emily. Really appreciate it. Had a ton of fun.
Hey, thanks so much for listening to the show. If this conversation resonated with you or you learned something new, make sure you follow the podcast so you don't miss out on future episodes. And do me a favor, like and subscribe and share this episode with a friend. Comment on anything that you want to see or hear more of in the future as well. You can also stay connected by subscribing to the Wonder Weekly newsletter and connect with me, Emily, on LinkedIn at Emily Armstrong or Instagram, Emily Armstrong 2.0 for more insights on building modern client service firms. Until next time, keep on adapting, modernizing, and growing beyond referrals.